envision this, that she's driving down the road. There's a pickup truck facing her, stopped in the street on a pretty busy road, Berkshire Valley. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah.
He's walking. She sees someone standing in front of the road, which turned out to be my son.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Yeah.
No, and you know, there's genetic factors, right? You know, obviously there could be a predisposed thing, and that could trigger something. You know, again, we just don't know. We just don't know.
And nobody knows.
No.
That's the problem with it right now.
No.
So what changed though? What changed in your attitude towards your wife is included in this?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If we can.
Yep.
What changed in the attitude to say I got it? Like, was it a day? Was it an event? Or was it a process?
There was an organization back then called COSAC, and we went to one of the support group meetings, and that was kind of sparked for me personally. That's what was the spark for me that ignited to start Hope Saves the Day and Autism Radio in the future, because there were people talking about it as a parent, right? The struggles, the challenges, the thing is, when you have a child, right? Typically, your child's going to sleep. Maybe they don't sleep for the first year or two, right? And then finally they do sleep, right? Or sleep through the night, right? Our situation was almost 13 years where this child did not sleep at all. And that was like torturous, for us, right? So literally, he was finally fully potty trained at the age of 13. He was in diapers up until that point.
Yeah.
You imagine that. And then the worst part, now he's big enough where, he obviously goes to the bathroom in his diaper. Now he's smearing this on the walls and stuff in the middle of the night. So now you're cleaning up shit, basically. And, that's a stressful thing to deal with that day after day and still be able to get up, go to work in the morning. My wife's still able to do, her tasks and go to work too, because she was trying to work at one point.
Because it is, even though he's a child with special needs, you are still a parent, and there are some universal frustrations with parents.
Absolutely.
You're like, come on, not again. And it doesn't mean you don't love them, but you do get frustrated.
You do.
And if you don't mind me asking, it had to take a toll on your marriage also.
Oh, I put a tremendous strain. Yeah. Oh, it absolutely. Probably even till this day, like still we're working through things. Yeah. It's not easy. But it's a challenging thing. It's just something that you have to do. And people say, "Oh, I don't know how you do it," but you have no choice.
You have to. You're a parent.
You just have to do it.
That's what our friend Derek said all the time. He's how do you go on tour? He said, "I'm a parent. I'm a parent first, and I'm a musician second.
Right.
I brought this child into the world. I have to provide for him. I have to do everything I can for him.
It's a responsibility.
Yeah, it's a responsibility.
Well, no child ever asked to be born. Right. You brought them.
Yeah, we
willingly.
wanted to have kids. My wife and I, wanted to have at least 2 children. We were thinking to have 3 was our goal, but then after Jonathan, we said no, we're not having any more kids.
I had a friend of mine because I had gotten a vasectomy very shortly after my second was born because I was done. I was getting older. I just didn't want to have any more children, and I remember somebody saying to me, "Well, what if there's something wrong with this one?" Because he was young. What if there's something?
Right.
Motherfucker, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean if there's something wrong with him? I'm just going to throw him away and start over. Throw him away and start over.
Right.
Like what? No. I almost grabbed the guy by the neck because I got so aggravated at that situation. Because they got other needs or they're not perfect in your eyes, doesn't mean I'm going to love them any less.
No.
So
but it is a fear though.
Yeah.
That is a real fear.
Oh, yeah.
And the hard part is I hate to say it like this, but when my cousins or family members or friends are having children, I do get fearful for that because I don't want them to go through what I went through. I really do pray for that.
You're tossing the dice every time you choose to have a child. You really are.
It's true.
You never know. I mean, it could be something as simple as the cord gets wrapped around the neck and cerebral palsy sets in, and that's what it is. But even so, I know my cousin has Down syndrome, okay? And I know many parents of Down syndrome parents. I've never heard one say that they were unhappy with their children. I know a lot of parents with autism, they love their children probably more than I love my children, which I don't think is possible. But
well, because it's the time you got to spend with them and the extra effort that you have to give that child. brings a closer bond. You know, like we were saying before, we were talking about Special Olympics. I know a lot of Special Olympics parents who do nothing but dote over their kids.
Sure.
Right.
You know,
do.
it's
They
like
do.
the greatest thing in the world to
do.
them.
Now, your son Jonathan, have you ever had it measured what his mental age is?
Yeah, so if you had to categorize him, probably more like 8 or 9 years old, like in that range, you know,
Okay.
as far as his intellectual abilities.
Well, it just gives people a gauge
Mhm.
of how they interact with
Yeah.
the world.
And he's 19 now, so
Yeah.
just to give you perspective.
How do you communicate? Like, is he able to tell you like when he wants something or when he needs something?
He's
or-
good with verbal cues, like somewhat. Like what I mean by verbal cues is like he'll point, you know, and sometimes he'll mouth things, and I can kind of understand him. He leads a lot of times by hand. He'll pull you and knows
Yeah.
he's able to tell you what he wants. I mean, we do have a very challenging life because we have to lock everything in the house. Our refrigerator or freezers actually have locks on them. Our cabinets have locks on them.
The Netflix account.
No, not the Netflix account.
So
but-
no, he was watching our friend Derek's child, and he got a hold and ordered how much in movies?
couple $100 worth of movies
oh God,
on an iPad. He just had to go.
Shame on Derek for leaving young
God.
Derek with Mike.
yeah,
Shame on
that
him.
was a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So
Getting all these alerts on your phone and all these movies that are.
Oh my God.
is he self-aware?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, I think it all depends on his state of mind. We went through a pretty traumatic experience with him last year. For whatever reason, he decided to get up and get out of the house in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And he wouldn't come in the house. I was 2:00 in the morning, and literally I'm like calling him. He's not coming. He's running around the yard. He's running away from me. And this lasted for hours. Like we're outside in the middle of the night, and it was
Was
like
it a game for him?
it didn't seem like a game because he almost seemed like he was, I don't know if he was hurting or what he was going through, but it was almost like, I mean, the doctor ended up diagnosing him with like a manic episode. And I don't know what triggered that. I have no idea. I mean, there's some correlations. They said, well, maybe because he was going through puberty, like really like, you know, he
Yeah.
started growing facial hair. So his testosterone just starting to spike a lot at that age. Because he developed later as a child. It seemed like he was like delayed even like, you know, developing. So is, you know, I don't know, but we went through this for a while. The worst night was I was coming home from work. I was actually not coming home from work. I was coming home from a meeting, and my wife calls me and she says, "Where are you?" She says, "Where?" She says, "We're in the hospital." And I'm like, "We're in the hospital," and he had, I guess, some kind of a epileptic seizure.
That's what I was going to ask, if he had any seizures at all.
And that never happened to us. And my daughter happened to look over, and he was under the covers, and he was like twitching and stuff, and he had a grand mal seizure basically. Of course, took him to the hospital. My wife took him. I wasn't even home. I felt so bad not being there for that moment too, because it's like I should have been home, but I was actually at my charity like board meeting, you know, which we do annually and quarterly, and I was like, I felt so guilty not being there that night when it happened, because it was like 11 o'clock at night this happened. But then shortly after that, he was still running out of the house, like continuously. But the one night she called me, I was coming home from work again, and she said, "He's gone." I said, "What do you mean he's gone?" She's like, "I can't find him." And obviously I'm driving. I can't get home any faster, but driving fast, obviously I'm speeding. I know you guys are officers, so. But
Sometimes there's good reasons
Anyway,
to go
but
fast.
I was getting home as quick as I could, and I did call my good friend who happens to live near me, who used to work for Passaic County Sheriff's Department, and we do have the Project Lifesaver. I work with Chief Gene Saunders. Actually, we're one of the licensed organizations in New Jersey, and he put out, you know, some calls and said, "Hey, I got people on standby if you need to come out." And I said, "Okay, well, let me. I'm almost there." I was home, and probably like before I even got home, my wife found him, and how she found him was, I know, traumatic for her. Where just envision this, that she's driving down the road. There's a pickup truck facing her, stopped in the street on a pretty busy road, Berkshire Valley. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah.
He's walking. She sees someone standing in front of the road. which turned out to be my son. And she's pulling up, and he's in the road, and this guy was nice enough to stop and try to contain him, but he was not coming either. Yeah. And thank God the guy stopped, number one, and number two, nobody came and hit him because he could have been killed very easily. I mean, there was people drive pretty fast on that road. Yeah. But that was like traumatic for her. I was home at least with her, but she was very much shaken up. And I don't think she's truly ever got over that, because a couple weeks later, he was at CVS and he took off on her, and she panicked. Like, so I think, you know, she needs to probably, you know, address that on her own level. Again, I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's a very sensitive topic, obviously, but it's very real. It's a very real thing. It's a very,
because that thought's always in your mind now too.
Yeah.
What if he bolts now? What if he takes off?
Right.
What, you know?
Well, you have a whole new set of worries. Like every parent has worries, but you have worries compounded to the nth degree.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, you know, you probably suffer from some kind of PTSD, I'm sure,
doubt.
You know, and it's probably real in there, and, you know, your emotions go up, they go down, and you're always like on guard. It feels like you're always like waiting for the other shoe to drop, because you're like, what is he going to do? What is he going to get into? You know, and this might sound funny for some of the listeners that might be listening, but like, he has an obsession with soap, but like not in a good way, where like I'll buy at BJ's a gallon of the Palmolive soap, put it on the counter. Next thing you know, turn around, it's all spilt out, the entire gallon.
Is it the texture?
Oh, he loves it.
He loves the texture.
But like, he'll dump it without even thinking about it. And you get mad, of course, like you said, you get mad, and you're like, Jonathan, what are you doing? And you get upset at him. You like yell at him, and he gets scared. Now he's scared. He's like, oh, what did I? And I'm like, what did you do, dude? Like, but the worst was, I remember my daughter bought some very expensive like shampoo and conditioner, and when he got a hold of that, and that went all over the place, dude, done.
But you still have to take care of his bathe, or does he bathe himself?
Oh yeah, no, I'm the bather every night. You know, he's got to have his shower, and he has a routine, and you know, I have to have a towel on my shoulders because he's very protective of his eyes. Got to constantly wiping his eyes, you know, because he doesn't like water in his face. So I have to do it a very certain way. My wife tries to do it; she does it okay, but he's more comfortable with me, I think. But again, it's you know, you think you got a 19-year-old kid and you got to bathe him. He's not a boy anymore. You know, he's become a young man, and it's like, you know, every day it's like, that's my job, you know, is to bathe him every night. And then obviously, you know, his routine, he's got to have his routine. You know, we have a glow turtle that glows up, and it's got to be at the end of the bed on this other turtle, and you know, he can't not have it, otherwise he gets upset, you know, so he's very regimented in his sleep.
They're very routine regimented.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You can't break it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's hard. And, you know, that's one of the things like we try to do with Autism Radio too, is like do a date night where we'll have professionals come into people's homes and watch their children so that the parents can get a night out, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because even like for my own family, like to watch my son is not easy.
But
and, you know, they're getting older now too.
So you have a young baby at home, and you are going to be a forever parent.
Yeah.
You're always a forever parent, but you're going to be a forever parent of an 8-year-old.
A caregiver. Yeah.
A caregiver. And, you know, young parents with infants at home, they rarely get a night out, or especially when at a certain level, they rarely get a night out. But does that ever weigh on your mind as far as that's your life?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think, you know, sometimes I get frustrated. Maybe I get a little upset once in a while. I mean, I'm a pretty positive guy. I definitely, you know, try to make lemonade out of lemons in my life, right? But I am human, and there is certain moments where, you know, it definitely affects you, where you're like, I just want to have a normal life like my friends or your neighbor, you know, and be able to just go out once in a while.
Like family dinners, like, you know, like going out to dinner.
But then
the four of you allowed? Like,
we did. Well, so perfect example. My wife's birthday just passed on Sunday, March 12th. So wish my wife happy birthday. She's listening to the show again. But no, we got out to go to dinner, and you know, he went out to dinner. And he was very good.
You got to take him to Grand Saloon.
Yeah,
Grand Saloon in Clifton is one of our sponsors.
Oh, really?
Fantastic food, very low key. He might do well there, but
well,
aside from that, it's good. As a chef, you're going to like it because it's good food.
All right, well, we'll definitely have to check that out. But you know, you do. When you go out, it's like sometimes you don't want to go out because you might act up or, you know, start yelling.
Your anxiety's got to be up.
It does.
You know what happened. You know, you're always thinking about like the what happened.
Yeah.
You know, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens?
You know, I've learned to just kind of deal with it. I mean, I used to feel bad because I didn't want to ruin someone else's evening, you know, by him making noise or doing something. But I do feel most people are more understanding today than they were probably 10 years ago. Because I remember in Disney World, true story.
I was just going to say vacations too.
We were on vacation, and he was probably 5 years old, and he was making a lot of noise, and we were in line, and someone said something. So now imagine this. You got Mama Bear. You know how Mama Bears are. And Papa Bear, too, when it comes to our kids, right? My wife says something like to this gentleman who said something, and I don't think he really meant anything by it. He's like, oh, somebody's excited. But it was like, but she took it the wrong way, and she said something, and I kind of was like, I mean, diffused the situation, but I was like, you know, I don't want to get in a fight in Disney World and get kicked out of the park. But you know, she got very, very sensitive, right? And I think we are sensitive to our kids in general, but then I think to the 10th level with special needs kids, you know, we're just that much more protective of them because they're not able to fight for themselves and protect themselves or defend themselves really a lot, you know, so that's a scary thing.
But I have to side with your wife on that one. If you're going to Disney World and you get annoyed by little children, really?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's Disney World. It's supposed to be for children, although a lot of adults use it.
It's like being annoyed by Mickey Mouse, so you go to Disney World.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like mice. Like we talked about fear tonight. I don't like mice, but I'm going to go to Disney World.
Yeah, well, he definitely turned around. He stopped after that. I was like, hey, if it's your best interest, just to turn around and enjoy your day.
There's a lot of pain and suffering that goes into caring for an autistic child.
Yes,
but there are some great things as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think about my kids when they were 8 years old. Best time ever. Yeah. They were my best friend. You know, they're my buddy, and I'm always their hero. Now I got a teenager.
It's different. It's changed.
Yeah. So what's some good things that have come out of your son, your relationship with your son?
Yeah. So we have like some really cool routines. So like normally, you know, you think you take your son to play ball or something like that, but he likes to go to the recycling center on the weekends. But he's like awesome at it. Like, and I mean awesome at it. He does all the work. I don't do anything. All I am is the chauffeur, basically drive him there. He takes everything, puts in the car, organizes everything. And then the guys there love him because he's become kind of like part of the crew now. Yeah. So we can stay there for a couple hours, and he'll throw cardboard in the cardboard. He'll take people's things out of their trunks. I mean, he loves that. So they let him do that every weekend, which is kind of cool. And they say, hey, Jonathan, and he gets all excited. He sees him, fist bumps him and stuff. It's pretty cool. So that's like a really cool moment. And then my good friend, who actually is a state trooper, has a martial arts school, and we started a martial arts program for kids with autism. And my son loves the martial arts. So that was a cool thing because I was a martial artist my whole life as a teenager myself up until my adulthood. I was able to at least do that activity with him, which was really cool. So I think it's finding an activity to connect to your child, no matter what that is, because there are things we can do. You can't, you got to, again, I always say to parents that have that new diagnosis, I said, I give you 24 hours to feel sorry for yourself. Now, 24 hours. After 24 hours, it's about focusing on making your child have the best life it can possibly be.
Well, I love that concept of a job. And I know it's not a job for him, but it sort of is. Yeah. It's a purpose. I go to a coffee shop and they employ special needs.
We were talking about that. Yes.
My favorite place in the entire world. I don't give a crap. As a matter of fact, I bought a coffee mug from them today. It was like $18. I was like, whoa. But,
But it's a good cause.
It's a good cause. Yes. And they're so happy. They all know, all the kids know my name. I don't go in there every day, but I go in there probably twice a week.
Right.
And they all know my name. They're happy to see me. You go to one of your local chain coffees.
Yeah, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts or something. Yeah.
You are a pain in the ass to them.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, what's greater than that? And they're making money. They're serving a purpose. Yeah. Their parents are happy to have them involved in something because it gives them a little bit of normalcy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It just gives you that, even if it's just a couple hours, right? It gives you that little reprieve of like, hey, you know what? This is awesome.
Well, we talk about it all the time. Like when you get in one of those moods, you got to get into your safe place. Find something where you're comfortable, whether it be the gym or something like that. Yeah. The recycling place is like the safe place for your son.
Yeah,
that's
where really is.
He can go and be productive.
And guys are amazing with him. They love him. And it's funny, if I don't come Saturday and Sunday, they say, where were you yesterday? They literally, they look forward to seeing him, which is really cool.
I'll bring all my cycles up to your house now.
Yeah. What you do for your son in the recycling center is amazing. think about what you're doing to the guys who are working at the recycling center.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're working hard, and I'm sure a lot of them, especially on the weekends, don't want to come into work
Sure.
until they see Jonathan.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, he wants to do, are you kidding me? He wants to do what I do?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, he motivates them.
Yeah.
He really does. He really does. I had a couple guys that, for Christmas, they gave him little things, and I mean, that was really special. Yeah. And I've been doing it since he's probably for the last 5-6 years.
It was just a fluke. You took him there one day to get him out of the house.
I said, let's try this. And I handed him the bucket, hey, dump this in the paper. Hey, do this and that. And then now he literally knows exactly what to do, and I don't have to do anything. Like, literally, he unloads the car himself and puts everything back in the car, closes the trunk, and he's like, okay, we're good to go, Dad. Let's go. Unless he has more
I was going to
work
ask you to drive there one day, too. Dad, give me the keys.
Yeah.
So the biggest fear I see with any parent with special needs, as I look at it,